everybody, I'm Jessie the Lookout, and this is my Game of Thrones Rewind show. Today we're talking about Season 5, Episode 2, The House of Black and White. This is your official spoiler warning. If you don't want anything spoiled for the show or the books, don't watch the video. Spoil things like milk on a hot day. In this series, I talk about any theories or ideas that I have or that I found on my adventure through this fandom. I also talk about the differences between the show and the book, but only for fun, because if there's one thing a lifetime of disappointing adaptations have taught me is that you compare for thematic purposes only, never for accuracy of events. I've just been burned too many times. Before we begin, I just wanted to point out some mistakes that I made in my last video. First of all, I made a mistake with these guys' names. This is Alliser Thorne, and this is Janos Slynt. And it's Alliser, not Allister. And that is a mistake I'm going to make a lot more times. So don't even bother trying to correct me on that one. Anything else, by all means. I mean, let me know when I mess something up, but pronunciation is not my strongest suit. Before coming to the Wall, Alliser Thorne hung out in King's Landing, and he participated in Robert's rebellion for the Targaryens. After the battle, Tywin gave Alliser the option of either being executed or going to the Wall, and obviously Alliser chose the Wall. Before taking place as acting Lord Commander, he was the guy who trained nooblers how to fight. So Janos Slynt is definitely the bigger butthead between the two of these guys, because as we've learned in the series so far, Janos Slynt was sent to the Wall by Tyrion Lannister whenever Janos murdered a bunch of Robert's bastards. So he's a baby killer. Apparently at one point, Janos was also named Lord of Harrenhal, but he lost that title when he was sent to the Wall. So compared to Janos, Sir Alliser looks like a warm and cozy fireplace. Last episode I also pointed out that Tyrion was wearing black, perhaps to signify that he has no house, but by the end of the episode, he's wearing the same colors as Varys. Poor guy just wants a friend. Also, look at this pretty little sparrow outside the Great Sept of Baelor, the center of worship for the Faith of the Seven, the leader of which refers to himself as High Sparrow. Coincidence? But enough of this. If I look back, I am lost. We must move forward into this week's episode, The House of Black and White. A quick thing about the introduction that another Reddit user pointed out. I don't know your username, I'm really sorry. Up in Winterfell, we can see the broken pieces of the Stark banner on the ground. I'm not sure if the shore is mocking us, or the North remembers. We open the episode with the Arya guided tour through Braavos. I loved seeing the set and the environment and where they were filming. It was really cool. Because as I said in my last Rewind video, the show isn't super great at selling its scenery, so it was really nice to have a little, like, some stuff to look at this episode. Granted, not a lot happened this episode, so I'm a little worried that they were doing it to fill time, but, I mean, beggars can't be choosers, so I'll take it, I guess. Look at that temple. And you have to get there by boat? Oh man, that door, so good. Fun fact, in the book, the door is described as being made of obsidian and weirwood, two extremely rare materials in Planetos. Here we meet a character I initially thought we were going to lose in this series. I mean, he might not be the guy I'm thinking of, but I think it's the closest I'm gonna get. This guy is referred to as the Kindly Man, and I believe that this guy is the show version of him. Even though, you know, by the end of the episode, he puts on Jaqen H'ghar's face, whatever. This is as close as I'm gonna get, and I'm gonna take it. So even though the scene, like, Arya's scenes feel very long, like, not a ton is happening, because after he turns her away, and she spends a night going through her prayers, she just tosses her coin in the water. Because, like, that's not gonna come back at all. But I guess we've got some plot dragging to do, so Arya goes on her own little tour of Braavos. In the books, the House of Black and White is open to everyone. Anyone can enter it and see what's going on there. It's just that nobody does, because it's not a super positive place to hang out. People are scared of it. They're really superstitious, and they avoid it because they think it's dangerous. The House of Black and White are worshippers of the stranger, and a lot of people fear the stranger and don't pray to them whenever they're praying to the Seven. The stranger isn't even included in the Seven's origin story. By the end of the episode, we still have big question marks about what's going on in the house and, like, what Arya's gonna do there, which is incredibly disappointing because I had a whole spiel about the faceless men and talking about them or whatever, but I'll have to save that for another episode because I don't want to ruin stuff for show watchers. I will say, though, that Arya is my favorite character in A Song of Ice and Fire, even more than Sansa and Marjorie. I read A Song of Ice and Fire during a time in my life when I was coming to grips with my own views of death, and, like, I know that sounds really cheesy, but as a result, I really related to Arya and her relationship with death, survival, and identity. One thing that was dropped from Arya's storyline is her ever-changing names. Whenever Arya finds herself in a new place, she puts on a new name with a new identity. She can't tell people who she is because they'll either murder her or kidnap her or try to sell her like Sandor did. Although their relationship clearly became about more than money. So between season 1 and season 5, here are the names that Arya would have gone by if this theme wasn't dropped. She was known as Arya Horseface, Arya Underfoot, Ari, Lumpy Face, Lumpy Head, Weasel, Nymeria, Nan, Squab, and Salty. And that's not including the bunch of fun nicknames she got from Sandor like She-Bitch, Wolf-Bitch, She-Wolf. They really tried to drive home the pack mentality between these two. Did anyone else notice that she took the Hound off her list? I guess the Hound is dead, and Sandor is at rest. We got a little bit of this naming idea whenever she went as Arya on the King's Road with Gendry and Hot Pie, but after that it was pretty much dropped. One thing that was fun was how quickly Arya disposed of that pigeon. She's come a long way since her rat jumping days in King's Landing. Some punks show up and Arya pulls out like a sick one-liner.
Nothing's worth anything to dead men.
And then the kindly man leads her back to the House of Black and White, and like, I don't know why? Like, what changed between the beginning of the episode and that scene? Like, was he just really impressed by her pigeon decapitating skills? Also, one thing that they did here that they do in a lot of things that, like, is kind of irritating to me is that Arya waited until they were back at the House of Black and White before asking him any questions. Like, obviously, like, this was a film thing that they were doing because of reasons, but, like, it's just really weird to me. Like, did you guys spend that whole trip in silence? Like, you guys were in the same boat together, right? Like, what did you say? And now you're back at the house? So, like, now you start questioning him? The pet peeve. Sorry, guys. But back at the temple, we learn that the kindly man is actually Jaqen H'ghar! Or somebody wearing Jaqen's appearance? Or something like that. Anyway, cool. But this man is not known as Jaqen H'ghar. In fact, this man is known as no one. The naming thing doesn't really pack much of a punch whenever you don't include Arya's long list of names. In the books, we can't really confirm or deny whether or not we see Jaqen ever again, although there are some faceless men who are getting into some business up in Westeros. It's hard to say whether or not the faceless man in Westeros is the same guy who went as Jaqen at Harrenhal? Harrenhal? Fuck. Harrenhal. Or another agent. I think that there was just simply not enough Braavos in this episode. More Braavos, more Arya. I just want a whole hour of Arya and Braavos. There's Sansa in this episode too? What? Oh, but first we have to check in with Brienne the Bummer and her sunny sidekick, Podrick. Podrick gets his flirt on and he catches sight of the one and only Peter Baelish. Because even though it takes literally months to get from one end of Westeros to the other, inns are a hot spot for meeting people, apparently. Peter and Sansa are in this episode so we can learn that Peter has some kind of marriage proposal thing going on and that Sansa is maybe thinking about poisoning him. No? That's just me? Okay, maybe not. We don't get an answer to the marriage thing because, like, we got time to fill, you know, we're catching up with those books. Anyway, Brienne can't help herself, so she marches right up to Sansa and swears her loyalty and her sword, like, immediately. Peter, understandably, isn't too fond of this weird person in Lannister armor just coming up and talking to Sansa and announcing to the whole inn that not only is Sansa Stark alive, but she's right here. And she's with Peter Baelish and she's with the Eyrie. That was so dumb. Like, I understand what Brienne was doing, that she got really excited, you know, she's the only honorable knight left in Westeros, but, like, god damn it, girl, keep it in your pants for, like, a little bit. Think about it, maybe. Plus, everyone that Brienne has protected has died, and last season she murdered the man who was protecting the girl that she was also trying to protect, you know, which wasn't super awesome. There were a couple moments where I thought that maybe Sansa was gonna accept Brienne as her sworn shield, but Peter's argument wins out overall. Maybe it's because she trusts Peter more than she trusts some random person on the street, or maybe it's because it wasn't in the books. Who can say? Peter tries to get Brienne to stay, but she's like, fuck it, I'm outie. And so she books it, which of course, like, pisses off the Knights of the Eyrie, so they go after her, and a high-speed chase on horseback commences. This was actually pretty cool. A little spotty at times, but it was so good that I knew I wasn't going to see any boobs this episode. She decides to chase after Sansa, even though Sansa doesn't want her anymore, because she believes that Sansa isn't safe with Peter Baelish, which I think is fair, you know, that's fine. I can't say that I know what they're doing with Brienne, because none of this was in the books. In the show, we can kind of guess that they're probably somewhere in the Eyrie or the Riverlands, but in the books, Brienne is definitely in the Riverlands looking for Sansa, and she's dealing with a whole set of characters that have been cut from the show. I want to believe that these characters haven't been completely cut from the show, but let me tell you, it is not looking good. Speaking of things that weren't in the book, we got a whole scene between Cersei and Jaime about their concern over Myrcella, their only daughter and their second child. They've received what Cersei perceives as a threat from Dorne because, as we know, Cersei played a very big part in the death of Oberyn Martell in the last season. So, since Cersei is super pissed, Jaime decides to go on a one-man mission to Dorne to make sure that Mycella's okay, maybe rescue her, and take a vacation from the main plot.
Do you know where they're keeping her?
Oberyn mentioned the Water Gardens.
Yeah, because that's the only in-show line we managed to put in about the whereabouts of Mycella. So, like, sure, go with that. Jaime's plot is currently going under some serious rejiggering. Him and Brienne have two of the most changed storylines so far. He never goes to Dorne in the books, and instead he goes to the Riverlands to dispose of what's left of the Robb Stark supporters. It's there that he receives 2 letters from 2 people who are very close to him. I won't go into the details of who sent them or what the letters contain, just in case by some miracle it's included in the show. We'll just have to see what happens for now. Bronn, what are you doing back in the series? You were written out after Tyrion's trial. Did anyone need a Jaime and Bronn team up? I know the team up I might have gotten, but this show canon is putting a hole in my ship! Bronn has a line about evil getting their just rewards, but as we know, that's not how this world works. And Jaime shows up to half blackmail, half bribe Bronn into going on this fun field trip to Dorne with him. I guess if we're just gonna make shit up, we can do whatever we want. So Bronn's wife, Lolly, is described as being very simple in the show and in the books, and I gotta hand it to them, they could have done a lot worse with her. She sounded pretty capable to me, and in these scenes, Bronn just kind of comes off like a patronizing asshole. I mean, she doesn't seem so much simple as she does just kind of clueless, like she's just kind of existing, you know, being cute. I thought she was cute. So congratulations, show. You get the not as bad as you could have been award. I am a little conflicted about the Jaime Bronn team up because I can't see how it's going to contribute to the show, especially when we have people gunning for Cersei's queendom and Casterly Rock. Like, Jaime brought those up in the last episode, and now he's going on a diplomatic mission. Jaime Lannister is going on a diplomatic mission. The same Jaime Lannister who is so bad at politics he turns down being Hand of the King. And Casterly Rock? Okay, let's do it, I guess. If somebody out there really needed a Jaime and Bronn team up, don't let me rain on your parade. Who knows? Maybe they'll get up to some real shenanigans. Could be fun. Oh shit, it's Dorne! Yeah, man, fucking look at those water gardens! Alaria Sand goes against her book canon and becomes a machine for vengeance for her dead lover. Wow, girl, do you think you could open with like a hello before you start spouting political exposition? So, it's pretty clear from the scene that Alaria wants Doran to go to war, but Doran Martell is not the kind of guy to just jump into war with the Lannisters. Or anyone, for that matter. The Martells are the only house in the Seven Kingdoms who were not conquered by Aegon Targaryen when he landed with his dragons. It took almost 100 or 200 years for the Martells to marry into the Targaryen family. They weren't ever actually conquered, and that didn't happen by accident. And as a result, Doran Martell is not about to jump into a war over his dead brother. Especially, as he said, all the people who were involved with Oberyn's death are dead. Alaria is really brutal here. She wants to get back at Cersei by nailing back Mycella one piece at a time. Of course, Doran turns her away, because if they start torturing little girls, then they're going to be no better than the Lannisters. If Oberyn was the snake, then Doran was the grass that hid the snake. The scene is pretty short, and it ends with Doran politely reminding Alaria that she has no power in this house, and then he returns to his scheming. Well, politely but firmly. In the books, Alaria is much more sympathetic, and that she shares Doran's ideas of ending the cycle of vengeance with them. It's primarily Oberyn's eldest daughters who are fueled with rage and this need for violence. There's a whole plot from A Feast for Crows where Oberyn's eldest daughter goes on her own scheme involving Mycella and Quentyn, but since Arianne and Quentyn aren't included in the series anymore, I don't see that happening. It is disappointing to see Alaria go from this person who just wants to mourn the loss of her lover and go on with her life, and then she's been turned into just this really angry person. And I know that in the show it kind of makes sense why she would do that, but also It's just, it feels like a change they didn't necessarily need, especially when they've got the sand snakes. And I personally think it would be just as interesting if Arya and Dorne are on one side saying, no, like, we can't continue the cycle of violence, it has to end, like, we have bigger fish to fry. And then Oberyn's daughters, the sand snakes, saying, like, no, fuck you, like, we've been scorned, and goddamn if we're not gonna avenge our father. But, I mean, it is what it is now, I guess. I love the guy they picked to play Dorne. So salty and hot. But like in an older gentleman kind of way. In the books, he's older and grayer and he has gout, but HBO tends to turn the hotness up to 11, and, you know, HBO, they do what they do. Also, Arrow Hota, looking good, bro. Nice to see some color in this show. Now, please have more than 2 lines. Another quick thing about this scene, we can kind of hear Tristan calling Myrcella my queen a couple of times. It's very softly, and I only noticed it on my second watch through. But, Myrcella isn't going to be queen of anything. Tommen is the king. Myrcella might become, like, the princess of Dorne, maybe, but, like, that's it. Hop, jump, and a skip over to Essos, and Dario and Grey Worm are hanging out, hunting harpies, you know, as bros do. The exchange between them about fear and hiding was pretty cute, except how did that guy get behind the wall? Are you trying to tell me that he plastered the wall behind him and then got one of his harpy buddies to put the bookshelf up before he left? Okay, sure. Let's go with that. Good thing he was hiding with his harpy memorabilia, otherwise this could have gotten really embarrassing. Now with the prisoner, Dany holds a small council meeting to figure out what to do with him. The Sons of the Harpy want to undo everything that Daenerys has done so far and reinstate the ownership of human beings. Hisgar is arguing that as a master, he has no idea what it's like to be a slave. And Massador is like, dude, it sucks. It fucking sucks a lot. We see what you do, and you think that because you have money that you're better than us, but you're fucking garbage. Mercy and trials are just fairy tales here.
All they understand is blood.
Ooh, you're gonna regret saying that for sure. Ah, good old Barristan, pushing for a trial to try and show the people of Meereen that there's a better way. He pulls Dany aside and reveals to her more of the truth about her father. And in this moment, I'm actually really proud of Daenerys because she doesn't turn away from the rumors and the truths about her father, the Mad King. And as we know, he was willing to burn King's Landing to the ground rather than see it in the hands of Tywin Lannister. Dany, with all the best intentions in the world, decides to hold a trial for the son of the Harpy, so that way she can attempt to be better than her father. This, of course, as we know, lasts for about 10 minutes, but you know, she tried. She tried really hard. Good for her. Barristan also reveals to Daenerys that she's the last living Targaryen, but, she's not. Tyrion scene. This scene, Varys forces Tyrion to remember who and what he is. They both might have been the best thing for Westeros while they were there, but the reality is they're never going to sit the Iron Throne. It's never going to happen. No one's going to look to them for leadership, even though they want it in their very bones. Just the sheer nature of what they are isn't... It's gross and it's different and I don't like it. I'm reminded of Tyrion's famous line back from season 1. Never forget what you are, and the rest of the world will not. Wear it like a shield, and no one can use it to hurt you. Unfortunately, I think Tyrion has forgotten what the world thinks of dwarves, even ones that ruled the nation in spite of the Mad King Joffrey. Plus, right now, he isn't much more than a drunken nihilistic fool. So, I mean, there's that. This scene was very well performed, but it was kind of just an exposition opportunity for us to learn that they're on their way to Volantis. So they started in Pentos, and now they're on their way to Volantis. If the posters are a spoiler, then they're probably going to take a boat to Meereen. Also, one last thing about this scene, look how fucking huge this box is. Like, we get a clip of it out here so we can kind of see that it's a big box and it takes like 4 horses to drag it, but like, holy shit, that is huge. Is this like the RV of carriages? The segue into the next scene is perfect, as per usual. It's a shame they had to cut a lot of things from the show, but at least they got the dwarven genocide in there. People are coming to Cersei with the head of every dwarf they can find. In the books, people are actively cutting off the noses of dwarves and like mutilating their faces in order to trick her, but obviously none of them are able to find the real Tyrion. Besides, if there's one face that Cersei hates most in the world, it's Tyrion's. Fucking Qyburn, you skeezy little weirdo. We get our second small council meeting of the episode, and I'm gonna go ahead and compare these to Daenerys in just a second. Cersei goes ahead and puts herself at the head of the table because she's the motherfucking queen, and then starts doling out titles like they were made of candy. I love it when she gives Mance the title master of coin. Oh, look at how cute he is! Are you blushing, Mance? Are you excited? Oh, you little gets named Master of Whispers, and I am now 100% sure that Cersei has no idea what that job entails. Cersei doesn't do subtlety, so the nature of Master of Whispers goes right over her head. For the first time, we meet Kevan Lannister, Tywin Lannister's brother. He has zero interest in serving under Cersei, and instead will take Tommen's orders from Casterly. If Cersei wants to be queen, and Jaime wants to go on vacation in Dorne, then that means the Rock is free, and Kevan Lannister will be damned if he's not going to be on top of it. Okay, so comparison time. First of all, Cersei sits at the head of her rectangular table, and we can clearly see her friend on one side and then everybody else on the other side. Cersei wants to rule, and for her that means everybody doing what she says. Daenerys stands outside her small council, which takes place at a rounded table, I might add. This way Daenerys can hear the arguments from her council and then internalize them to make her own decisions. Cersei, as Kevan put it, is stacking her small council with sycophants and puppets. Dany, on the other hand, includes people in her council whose views she doesn't completely share, like Barristan and Hizgar. Dany also listens to everything her council has to say, where Cersei has already interrupted Pycelle 2 times this season alone. I mean, Pycelle's a total doorknob, but he is Maester of the Citadel, and I have a feeling that you don't get there by accident. Really what it comes down to is Cersei wants to play at being queen, whereas Daenerys is ready to make hard and real decisions. From the south, we head all the way back up to the north, where we can hang out with Sam, Gilly, and Shireen. Here we learned that the youngest Lord Commander in history was 10 years old. Thanks, Sam! How old is Jon in the books? 15? That's practically an old man! For those of you who have seen the episode, which you should have by now, this line was Sam checking to see if someone as young as Jon could be nominated as Lord Commander. But this whole scene is too cute. Shireen teaching Gilly how to read, and while Gilly's having a couple of issues with it, that she was still able to remember the name that Sam said when filling them in about fun facts about the Watch. And, like, that name left my head, like, immediately. So, I mean, Gilly's no fool. Or at least less of a fool than I am. I'm not sure if that's saying much. Shireen is a smart and patient person, and through her and Gilly we get to learn a little bit about grayscale. Gilly tells us about the treatment that Craster gave his daughter wives whenever they would get grayscale, and that treatment, of course, is to leave them in the winter until the grayscale consumes their bodies and their minds, until they're nothing but violent husks of humans. Lady Selyse shows up to put a damper on the party and tells Shireen that she shouldn't be friends with wildlings. It's pretty easy to hate on Selyse because she's a crazy bitch, but she has a very good point in that Shireen trusts a little too easily. Shireen wants to see the good in everyone because of her history of being judged because of her grayscale, but if Gilly were a real wildling, then I wouldn't want her hanging out with my kid either. It's just, you know, it's a bummer because Selyse is clearly uninterested in Shireen as a person. Selyse has wanted to give Stannis a son pretty much their entire marriage, and all they've managed to make is Shireen. And while Shireen is a delightful person, Selyse is just crazy enough not to give a fuck. Really, it's a miracle we got someone as nice and as lovely as Shireen, because she could have turned out to be a real butthead. Elsewhere in Castle Black, Stannis is real bummed out about Jon ruining his Burning Man party, but Jon's like, whatever bro, I got bigger fish to fry than this. Davos attempts to act like Stannis' half-finger cheerleader in an attempt to intimidate Jon, but it fails pretty miserably. Jon knows that Stannis is just posturing, because if Stannis were to kill a member of the Night's Watch, like, that's not gonna go down well for anybody. Plus there's this fancy note from Bear Island telling Stannis to go sit on a staghorn, essentially. Oh, by the way, if Castle Black is here and Winterfell is here, then Bear Island's over here. Jon laughs because typical Mormonts! I'm really hoping that we get to see the kind of the fury and the rage of the Mormont women, because do you really want to fuck with a mama bear? Granted, this note is a pretty stupid thing for them to do. It could have been intercepted by the Boltons. Plus, the Starks have scattered by now, so they're holding allegiance to a house that doesn't exist anymore. It's a nice sentiment, but not a very smart one. But the North remembers. Since there aren't any Starks for Stannis to team up with, he's gonna make one out of snow. He offers to legitimize Jon as a Stark, which is really exciting because this is what Jon has wanted his entire life. But goddamn those vows! Why didn't Ned ever ask Robert to legitimize Jon? Well, there's a couple of reasons why he might not have done it. One of them being that if Jon was a Stark, then he might be in competition with Robb for Winterfell. Plus, Catelyn had such a huge stick up her butt about Jon that if he had been turned into a Stark, I guarantee she would have been a fucking nightmare to live with. Plus, Ned likes to play by the rules. Born a bastard, you stay a bastard, I guess. I mean, who knows why he didn't do it? Probably Ned reasons. We'll never find out why. Probably more like theme reasons. Jon proves he's the Starkiest Snow by sticking to his vows instead of giving in to his lifelong dream of being a Stark. Plus, I mean, there's like literally no one other than Braavos who recognizes Stannis as king, so if Jon were to break his vows and bend the knee to Stannis, and then Stannis were to die, then Jon would be executed as a deserter. So, you know, good try, Stannis. After Jon bums himself out about Winterfell, Janos toots Alistair's horn for a little while, going on about how cute and funny he is. We also get to see the other nominee, who is, what's his name?
Sir Dennis Mallister.
Right. We don't get to see any more of Brother Dennis because, unfortunately, shortly after they began filming, his actor passed away. So instead of recasting him, they just wrote his character out of the books completely, which is a shame because now this character just kind of seems really random to me. I mean, also, dying is also a shame, but I mean, god damn it, you know what I mean. In a surprise turn of events, Sam nominates Jon as Lord Commander. Oh shit, Janos better fetch a maester for that burn! The speech here shows us how far Sam has come since his first appearance back in season 1. When we met Sam, he was just kind of like a blundering idiot who like was really unsure of himself. But here, we see that Sam has become Sam the Slayer. They make fun of him for it, but like, he's fucking took out those White Walkers. Alistair also tries to get his own jab at Jon about being a wildling sympathizer, and a really deep part of me wanted Jon to just turn to him and be like, fucking listen, buddy. Winter is coming and we're gonna need all the help we can get. The reason Northerners fight for their own is because they have seen the worst that Winter has to offer. They understand that when the lone wolf dies, the pack survives. I know the show wants me to believe that the tie was between Alistair and Jon, but the way people are giving their condolences to Dennis, like, good try, buddy, makes me want to believe that Alistair was the guy who got, like, the fewest amount of votes, and that's why he's so pissed off. I mean, like, no reason. I just think it's funnier that way. You know, it's actually really fucking awesome to see Jon as Lord Commander finally. This is just, like, this is so awesome. This is everything that he could have hoped for. Jon came to the Wall as a bastard because he thought he could find his own type of honor there, and then we can see that he has. He has become Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. That's a post he's gonna hold until he dies. Like, it's awesome. Like, I'm so excited for Jon! I'm so excited. Finally, we come to the last stretch of the episode, Daenerys' dilemma. For some reason, Mossador confronted the Sons of the Harpy in his cell, and the Harpy gets like a sick burn-in about, you know, no matter how much the slaves love Daenerys, she's never actually going to be their mother. And then Mossador murders him, which I'm confused about because wasn't that Harpy like surrounded by guards? Did they just let Mossador kill him? Like in this, I mean, like he clearly didn't kill him in the cell because the guy is hung up outside, but like what were they doing in the meantime? I don't want to pick on you, show. You just make it too easy. Anyway, this murder, it's a big problem. Whereas the son of the Harpy was accused of murdering the Unsullied, they didn't really have any proof to say that he did it, and that's why they were going to have a trial so that the public could decide. Mossador, on the other hand, just admits to it. He does it and then admits he did it for Daenerys. And as a result, no trial is necessary for him. He's to be punished by law, which in this society is by blood. When Mossador tells Daenerys, like, the masters aren't the law anymore, she is the law, what he means here is that she has replaced the wise masters, and it seems like all the former slaves think that Daenerys has elevated them above the masters, when in reality that was never her intent. She wanted to free them so that they could learn how to govern themselves. Her plan has always been to eventually leave them and then sail to Westeros. It's hard for her to come into these places and say, hey, quit what you're doing, I'm the queen, do as I say, and then turn around and say like, okay, actually I'm not the ultimate authority, the law is the ultimate authority, everybody has to listen to the law. Up until now, Dany has been a savior and a hero for these former slaves, but all she's wanted to do was create a society where there are no masters and there are no slaves, there are only citizens of Meereen. You know, a place where everyone is considered equal. But of course, like Mossador points out that like some people live in the temples and some people don't, so even if there are no masters and no slaves, like class warfare is a thing. This idea that the slaves are supposed to be higher than the masters now, even though they're not, this is all the reason that the crowd reacts so badly when Mossador is executed. They don't see that Daenerys is giving them a new law for them to abide. They just see their mother murdering their brother, a crime that they have seen committed against them too many times to count. This is a society that has had slaves and class warfare for thousands of years. It takes time for people to adopt new ideals, and the methods that Dany is using just aren't sinking in fast enough. I gotta admit though, this was a little weird. I also have to hand it to the Unsullied. When that crowd started to turn, they were on it. Turtle shell activate! What struck me about this scene is how distinctly human Dany feels when she's trying to escape. This is the first time she's ever really appeared mortal in front of her people. I mean, like, she could have gotten really fucked up in that crowd. I mean, it even reminded me that she could get hurt. I mean, obviously she didn't, but it was an interesting feeling. Even knowing what I know about the series, like, in that moment, I felt like, wow, like, she's in a very weak position right now, and I liked that. That was kind of cool. The episode ends with a beautiful moment between Drogon and Dany. Drogon has been off flying around the continent doing dragon things, and Dany greets him with a face that contains no hesitation. With her other children, there was a fear there, but Drogon is her firstborn. Even if he has become the most powerful creature in the world, she loves him, and he loves her. I like this scene because I want to believe that Dany is going to take strength from Drogon. She's going to remember who she is, and she's going to remind everyone why she is called Daenerys the Unburnt. The music at the end was so good. That long, sad horn gave me chills. Ooh. And that's the end of the episode. The Arya scenes were my favorite. Big surprise. I don't like what they're doing with Jaime and Bronn. It just smells really half-assed and yucky to me. I just have a feeling that whatever happens to Jaime this season is going to be undone in the next season. But like, I'm not going to judge. We'll just see what happens. In the books, after he loses his hand, he starts his redemption arc. He starts re-evaluating who he is and his relationship with Cersei and the crown. I mean, there's making changes from the book, and then there's missing the boat completely. I'm not gonna lie, guys, it's a little frustrating to hear that they're catching up with the books while simultaneously cutting out huge plots from the books. But I don't want to be that person who is constantly like, the book was better, because fucking of course the book's better. I only make comparisons for fun, even when I'm disappointed with the direction that they take. Also because tearing down something that hundreds of people worked on makes me feel alive. I think from here on out I'm going to stop comparing Jaime and Brienne to their book selves, just because it's completely different now. Until something happens that brings us back to the books, I'm just going to look at their plots like they're their own, just on their own for entertainment value's sake. I just realized that they're headed in two opposite directions. This is the worst. And that's it for this week's Game of Thrones. Thank you so much for giving me your time and for watching this. If you have any thoughts or theories or ideas, or if I fuck something up, you can go ahead and leave those in the comments below. If you enjoyed watching it, you can go ahead and give it a thumbs up and maybe share it with your other Game of Thrones friends. If you haven't already, you can check out my previous episode, or you can subscribe to my channel to see what else I do. You can also catch me on social media like Tumblr, Twitter, Instagram, and Ello. I also want to say hello to the handful of new subscribers I got from my last Game of Thrones video. Thanks for joining me, guys! Welcome to my baby YouTube channel. Here we just kind of talk about nerdy things and wear cute outfits. I also want to give a quick shout out to the Game of Thrones subreddit. You guys are awesome, and I will try to do a better job of crediting any ideas that I find with specific users. Our Game of Thrones and our A Song of Ice and Fire are really good places to hang out and talk about theories. They're of course not spoiler free, so if you haven't read the books, like, don't. Though our Game of Thrones is pretty good with its spoiler tags. I've been banned twice. I mean, a number of users from the Our Game of Thrones came forward to correct me about my Alistair and Janos Slint mistake, which I really appreciated. So yeah, thanks a lot, guys. I'll catch you next week. Valor Morgulis.